after last night, I think I'm about to do something that I swore I would never do again. And that is have hope in a Texas Rangers pitching prospect.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into Kumar Rocker's fantastic outing last night, Jack Leiter, maybe even one-upping him, and me starting to have faith in Texas Rangers pitching prospects. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, last night, instead of watching the Rangers lose an annoying and frustrating and apparently discourse-filled 3-2 game to the Minnesota Twins, I ventured up to Frisco. It had been a while since I'd been to Frisco this season. I got some eyes on Emiliano Teodo early. I believe I saw him again later on this season, but it'd been a minute since I'd been there. I wasn't able to see Kumar. I swear I'm going to get that down eventually. But I was able to see Kumar Rocker's second appearance in Frisco, his 4th start in Double-A in person. Watching that kid last night was just an absolute treat. I mean, truly delightful. It was one of my favorite games that I've been to in quite some time, not only just because I was seeing a Rangers pitching prospect that I was excited about heading into it and left the game still even more excited, which outside of Teodo, it's been a minute since I've done that. But last night, the numbers may not look overall incredibly dominating, but what he was doing on the mound, what he's been doing since he's been called up to Frisco, since coming off of that rehab for the elbow surgery that he underwent last year, he has been nothing short of fantastic. There has only been one of his 4 starts in Frisco where he has allowed multiple hits. In last night's game, he only allowed 2 base runners in the entire 4 innings. And one of those base runners probably shouldn't have been a base runner. The one walk that he issued in the first inning, the leadoff batter, a 3-1 count where a couple of those pitches, including ball 4 and I think ball 3 as well, were fastballs that were located away to a lefty that I thought were probably strikes from my pretty good vantage point, but alas, he did not get the call. Still worked around it, worked quickly, 4 innings, 1 hit, a ringing double that scored on 2 consecutive groundouts to second base, and 5 strikeouts, where he just looked as nasty as advertised. I mean, this is the real deal. The Rangers got one. Finally, a potential top of the rotation pitching prospect. That has not been said since the days of, I don't know, Kevin Brown, basically. It's been that long. It's been a long time since the Rangers have even developed, decent starting pitchers. There have been some. C.J. Wilson was pretty good for a while, homegrown pitcher. Granted, he went the closer to starter role, but he did it well and was a talented multi-time all-star starting pitcher for the Texas Rangers on some of their best teams. Matt Harrison, not entirely homegrown, but was an all-star, was a solid number 3 starter. Derek Holland had a couple of pretty good years. Martin Perez had a couple decent years. But outside of that, there has been not a whole lot there, and not a whole lot with this kind of ceiling. And with Kumar Rocker, there has been a lot of hand-wringing and overthinking, and I don't know about this guy. The questions have been amplified more so than his strengths because there has been a lot of prospect fatigue around this guy because he's been on the prospect consciousness since he was basically 16 years old, and he's 24 now. And he only is in his second year of affiliated baseball. Technically his second year of pro baseball, but not a whole lot of starts for him as a pro. I mean, this was his fourth start, finally allowed an earned run in Double-A, which we knew was eventually going to happen, but pitching on a little bit shorter rest than he had the first 3 starts. He had been going on 6 days rest. This time he was on just 5 days rest, and still incredibly efficient. 52 pitches for him in those 4 innings. The Rangers are probably wanting to keep him around, I'm assuming, 50 innings for the year. That's what Evan Grant wrote as a target in his mailbag column, and he's right now at 28 innings on the year between Arizona Complex League and Frisco. So I think that's a reasonable target for him. Tepid participation on Twitter said he couldn't rule him out of maybe fighting for a spot in the opening day rotation next year out of camp. I still think that's maybe a bit aggressive, but after what I saw last night, I mean, I don't think I'm ruling it out either. I wouldn't bank on it. I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't expect it. But I don't know that I would be totally shocked at this point if he is a member of the Rangers starting rotation next year. Now, he's not going to be the ace next year. That is going to go to Mr. Jacob deGrom. He's probably not going to be the number 2. That's almost certainly going to Tyler Mahle unless the Rangers bring back Eovaldi or sign somebody else, which we'll get to later on in this show about what they're going to do with the rotation next year, including how Cody Bradford and Jack Leiter might factor into it, because Jack himself had a pretty good night as well. But what I saw from Kumar Rocker is the full package of a guy who could be an actual ace at the big league level. Fastball sitting in there, 2 different fastballs, 4-seamer, 2-seamer. 2-seamer works very, very well against righties. 4-seamer works very, very well. The top of the zone, the numbers on it, the shape on it, the everything on it looks really darn good. And the slider, which apparently has always been a curveball, does not call it a slider. He grips it like a curveball, manipulates it 2 different ways, but he's always called it a curveball. We just apparently have decided that it's a slider. But whatever he calls it, whatever he shapes it like, it is absolutely devastating. And that changeup is looking much, much better as well. He's looking more comfortable with it. It's a circled changeup, so it moves away from left-handed hitters and into right-handed hitters. And he's feeling more comfortable with it. That could end up being at least an average big league offering. And when you got a fastball, 2 fastballs that go all the way up to 99 miles an hour, have good shape on them, and then the devastating breaking ball that, whatever you want to call it, however he shapes it, it is absolutely elite. That's a potential top of the rotation pitcher. Not to mention, the kid's built like a freaking horse. I mean, his dad played defensive end in the NFL and was fantastic at it. He's 6'4", 245, looks every bit of it. Works quickly, knows what he's about. He is the first one out of the dugout when he was getting on the mound. I mean, he was just right there, ready to go. As soon as the bottom half inning was done, he just popped right out there and got on the mound. I mean, the catcher had to really hustle to get out there to catch his warm-up pitches because this kid works fast. I mean, 3.5 minutes for, I believe, his final inning of work. Just 1, 2, 3, boom. Mowed him down like that. He is everything the Rangers hoped he would be. And then some. There are still concerns. He is still a pitching prospect. He has had some injuries. He's had the shoulder surgery, the knee concern that the Mets ended up passing on drafting him because of the shoulder and knee concerns. He has also now had elbow reconstruction surgery, which for me didn't really change all that much on my opinion of him. The delivery when he first threw pro ball for the Rangers in the Arizona Fall League looked all kinds of messy and terrifying. And Grant and I talked about it ad nauseum of, oh boy, this boy is, they're reworking that delivery, but this young man, stop doing that. Stop throwing the baseball like that. Don't do that, because you're going to hurt yourself, and you're going to hurt me when you hurt yourself, because I am going to be hurt because I have belief in you. But the delivery that he was doing last night, that he's been doing all year since he came back up, and what he was doing last year as well, it's clean, it's repeatable, it is effective, and it is what the Rangers were hoping for. I mean, it's not putting unnecessary stress on his shoulder. There will still always be, concerns about, is he going to stay healthy? Is he going to be able to, pitch a full starter's workload? Because there's concerns about that for literally everybody. Even if you have been the picture of health. I mean, heck, Garrett Cole was the picture of health, and this year has missed more than half the year. It's just what happens to pitchers nowadays. It's just kind of how things work. But from what I saw last night from Kumar Rocker, that is someone to have hope in. That is someone that, has the full package. That is someone that can do something that no Rangers pitching prospect has done in 20 years, almost 30 years. And that is give me good reason to hope. Coming up, we're talking about his Vandy buddy, Jack Leiter, doing something that he hasn't done before and looking downright exceptional last night for Round Rock. We'll talk about right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by Liquid IV. When you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. Find all your favorite flavors on their website, from acai berry to lemon lime to pina colada as well. Tear, pour, live more. One stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Powered by LAV Hydrocidants, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Shout out to the Aviators for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. Tonight, the Rangers take on the Twins, 7:05 Central Time, first pitch. It's going to be Simeon Woods-Richardson against Andrew Heaney. You can catch every pitch for the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, last night, the two Vandy boys, count them, two Vandy boys, gave me reason to hope in a Texas Rangers pitching prospect. Something I didn't think I was going to do again. It's something that I have been burned doing many, many times. I mean, prospects will break your heart, and there is no such thing as a pitching prospect. But for the last few years, there's really not been such thing as a Texas Rangers pitching prospect. And last night in AAA, Jack Leiter just looked absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. Just downright exceptional. He had just gotten off of I forget exactly what the list, the development list, basically just getting a couple weeks off for some rest, for some load management. So far this season in Round Rock, he has pitched 71 and a third innings. He hasn't thrown all that many innings so far this year. I mean, he's thrown 70 or 82 innings. He hasn't thrown that many innings so far in his minor league career. 92 and 2/3 innings back in 2022. In 2023, 85 innings. So this year he's getting right up around where the Rangers are hoping to not push him too much this season. Still trying to increase that workload, but seems like that time off for R&R really made a big impact. The last start he had was on the 27th of July. This start on the 15th of August. And there was one big notable difference for Mr. Jack Leiter. Actually, well, a couple. notable differences for Mr. Jack Leiter on the hill for the Round Rock Express. The dude was throwing freaking gas. Absolute heat. I mean, blowing it by guys in a way that we haven't seen him do really in the minor leagues at all. He's shown velocity at times. I mean, on the year, his four-seamer is averaging 95.6 miles an hour. That's not slow. He's also got good movement on it. It's not just velocity only. And we've even seen him touch 100 before in the minors, but not really this year and not to this extent. Last night, he threw 62 pitches, 34 of them were four-seam fastballs, and that four-seamer was averaging 98.6 miles an hour. Let me say that again. It was averaging 98.6 miles an hour, which means on the TV it was showing up as 99. That's nuts. That's absolutely bonkers. And it wasn't just that he was throwing it hard, is that he was throwing it effectively as well. The slider looked good. The curveball looked good. The changeup was fine. The cutter was solid. But man, that fastball had some ride to it, and not just looking at him and the numbers and everything being great with that, but when you go and you back and you watch the delivery, you watch what he's throwing like. I mean, it just looked so free, so easy. He looked so comfortable and confident out there in a way that we haven't really seen much in the minor leagues. You go back and watch his starts at Vandy, that kid was pitching like someone who knew he was an ace. He was a top 5 draft pick. He was going to be a big leaguer and a darn good one. He had all the confidence in the world, just letting it ride, saying, here's my fastball, here's my slider, here's my curveball. You bums cannot hit it. I'm just freaking better than you. And he was right. Now, he got challenged when he got to AA, when he got to professional baseball, he realized, I need to get a lot better. I can't just blow it by these guys. I can't just get away with mistakes like I could at Vanderbilt. I can't just throw cheddar cheese 60, 70% of the time and get it by guys, because these hitters are so much better than they were in college. And, he just didn't look as confident after a couple of rough years, where this year he's made some progress. There have been some changes. He has failed in different ways, which is good. He has learned to do new things and change things up, and I think that he has been able to buy more into the Rangers system, had a little less familial influence, which I think is very good for any prospect. I don't care if your dad is Randy frickin' Johnson. Maybe buy into the professional developers, not just a guy who was a pretty good big leaguer for 20 years. But the slider worked so well, it was up in velocity as well. It was averaging 89.7 miles an hour, which is up 4.1 miles an hour from his season average. The curveball he threw 6 times. He got 3 swings on it, 2 swings and misses, so a 67% whiff rate on that. 7 swings and misses of 9 swings on the slider, so 78% whiff rate on that. Only 1 ball in play on those 9 swings. The other was fouled off weakly. The curveball was up 4.6 miles an hour. I mean, everything was just playing way, way up in a way that makes me think, you know what? There's always been some reliever risk with Jack Leiter, and if he is a reliever, now I'm not saying that he for sure is, but if he is, then I think he's going to be an absolutely phenomenal one, which, not what the Rangers were hoping for, but if that turns out to be the case, then you look at how little pitching the Rangers have developed, not just in the starting ranks, but in the relief ranks. And when you can get one of those guys, an elite reliever for, league minimum for 3 years, and then arbitration controlled for the next 3 years, that's valuable. That allows you to go out and spend on the big stars like the Simeons and the Seagers and the DeGroms. That's value when you get that kind of production from a guy like him. But seeing Jack Leiter go out there, be confident, I don't know that the Rangers are going to call him up to do too much in the majors after the AAA season is done. Maybe they will. I mean, if he keeps throwing like this and the Rangers want to use him as a multi-inning reliever at the big league level consistently and on a scheduled workload, then I think that'll help. I don't think it'll get them back into the race, but I think it'll help Jack Leiter saying, okay, you go out there throwing cheddar cheese like this against big leaguers, that's going to get big leaguers out. That's going to get them to swing and miss. That is a hugely great thing for the Rangers. As has been a lot of things for the Rangers on the pitching side of development this year. We're talking about what's gone right for the Rangers system and what has gone wrong and why their system, despite having a lot of nice things going right for them this year, still ranks in the bottom 10 and kind of deserves to. Right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active users. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it is just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You turn $10 into $1,000. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, overall, I'd say the Rangers have had a good year on the farm. Just from a whole perspective, generally, it's been a pretty solid season. Especially when you look at the strides forward that so many different pitching prospects have made. Hitting-wise, it's been a little bit of a different story. Sebastian Walcott has had a good year, and other than that, hitting-wise on the farm, it has been not great. Not anything, too terrible, but nothing really of that much consequence. I mean, there have been a couple of good seasons from guys low in the minors, but I feel like for most prospects, you don't know much of really anything until they're at least in high A. I mean, you can kind of suss out some things, but some good numbers that are making Summer League is great. Good numbers in the Complex League, great. Good numbers in full season ball. Now we're starting to talk. Then once you get to Hickory, it's like, okay, now we have kind of a sense of who these prospects are. I mean, the pitching prospects that have made big strides this year, I mean, there's been, 6 or 7 of them, from Kumar Rocker to Emiliano Teodo. Alejandro Rosario has been fantastic. All of those 3 guys, I mean, Rocker, we already kind of knew the ceiling, but the other 2 have made big strides this year. Cole Drake has been another surprise that's been very good. Isaac Tiger, Mitch Bratt, Winston Santos, all those guys, pretty solid strides forward. But the reason that this Rangers farm system ranks in the bottom 10 in baseball is a lot about a ceiling. I was having this conversation with tepid participation last night while watching Kumar Rocker about, okay, well, the depth is there. There's probably 30, 40 guys that I think will be big leaguers at some point, maybe even, everyday starters, maybe solid everyday starters. In terms of whether that's, back into the rotation or, position players, maybe, or impact high leverage relief guys. But the real problem with this Rangers farm system is that when you look up and down their top 30 prospects, you don't see a lot of potential stars. Now, the ceiling has its place, and at one point when I was first getting into prospect writing and evaluating prospects, for me it was ceiling over everything. I mean, it made sense given the prospects that I was evaluating, given where the Rangers system was. Guys like Lewis Brinson and Jorge Alfaro and Joey Gallo and Nomar Mazara. I mean, those guys had some incredibly high ceilings. But their floors were also pretty darn low, and a lot of them were much closer to the floor than the ceiling. Joey Gallo being the exception, because he is always the exception. And so then, over time, I started evaluating, floor is a little bit more important than I give it credit for. Maybe there's some importance of having a floor of, okay, at the very worst, this guy's going to be a big league regular, especially when it comes to pitching prospects. If at worst a guy is, a number 5 starter, that is solid. That is something that has value. Or if at worst he's going to be a really dang nasty reliever, that is something the Rangers haven't really developed and need to develop. And you look up and down this system, and there are maybe 2 guys with potential all-star ceilings. And that's Sebastian Walcott and Kumar Rocker. Now, I just talked ad nauseum about Rocker, and Walcott's been having himself a really darn good year, and I think I'm going to get to see him in person for the first time towards the end of the season in Frisco. There'll be about a week extra of the season that Double-A goes longer than High A, so I'm excited to see when Walcott gets here what he looks like, just seeing that dude in person. But outside of that, I mean, a Leiter ceiling is no longer, number 2, maybe number 1 starter. That kind of hope is probably gone. I still have hope that he could be a number 3 starter in the big leagues, and that would be a good value for what the Rangers are hoping for and what they've done in the past. Rosario's ceiling is probably a number 2 starter, but it's been 1 year, so it's really difficult to tell. And 4 or 5 starts in High A this year. Teodo, if he sticks as a starter, maybe he could be that nasty. I mean, the breaking ball that he's got is probably the best pitch in the system, but you look up and down, and Foskew's ceiling is maybe decent starter. Malcolm Moore, if he's a catcher, I don't know what to make of him. He's played 6 pro games. It hasn't been an inspiring 6 pro game, but it's 6 pro games. And you look kind of lower in the system. I mean, maybe Gutierrez has that kind of a ceiling. Maybe Vargas does. Maybe Yolfran Castillo, Paulino Santana. But again, those guys are so low in the system that we really don't know a darn thing about them. So when you're thinking, why is this Rangers system ranked so low? That is why. Also, the graduation of Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford, that will do some damage to your system prospect rankings. That's just kind of unavoidable. But overall, this team is in a decent place. They're in a decent place in terms of how they're developing this talent, especially if they can get Kumar Rocker to be the Kumar Rocker that everybody thought he might be at 18 or 20 or 21. That would be a massive, massive developmental win, because a lot of how you build your baseball team is how you allocate your dollars. And it's why I don't understand the hate to Leo Taveras, because he's making $3 million this year to be your worst everyday starter, but an everyday starting caliber player. And yeah, he's not perfect, but you spend $3 million on having a fine everyday center fielder, so you can spend $50 million on the Seager and the Semien. And it's why it's so important that Rocker can be developed, that these starting pitchers can be developed internally, especially why it's so important of Cody Bradford. If he is a legit number 3 to 5 in your starting rotation, and you can roll him out there, and if Rocker does the amazing and unthinkable and makes the everyday starting rotation next year out of camp, heck, if Jack Leiter does the amazing unthinkable and is actually ready to be a big league starter next year out of camp, that makes you feel so much better about this team moving forward and how they can allocate their dollars. And not only that, but the guys in the bullpen, if some of those starters that I mentioned earlier, like Winston Santos or Mitch Bratt or Emiliano Teodo, if they end up being just dang nasty relievers, you can spend the league minimum on those guys and have more dollars to allocate to the most expensive things like star middle infielders, or probably not a Juan Soto, but some kind of impact bat, or starting pitching, which is really dang expensive. Even the mediocre starting pitching on the free agent market is so dang expensive. So this team is in an okay place. I'm really excited about Kumar Rocker's future. I'm really excited to hopefully see some of Sebastian Walcott probably in about a month or so. Maybe it'll be, I think it'll be about 2 to 3 weeks before we see him. I'm excited to see Rocker again next week. I believe it'll be on Wednesday in Frisco. I'm excited to go out there and see Mitch Bratt tonight and see what he's got there. But the strides that Rocker and Leiter have made just last night alone was so incredibly impressive. I mean, it's one game. For Rocker, it's now been 4 in Double-A, but for Jack, it was just one game. And just seeing him out there and being free and looking that loose and looking that nasty, having that kind of confidence back is something that we haven't seen from him. And that, more than him just going out there and letting it eat at 99 miles an hour on the regular, that gives me more confidence, the look of him, than the actual results. That makes me so happy for Jack and for this organization as well. Because, I mean, I don't know about what this team is doing moving forward with the questions about, not only the question of why the heck is Chris Young not extended right the heck now? Because every day that goes on and he doesn't have an extension on his desk makes me want to lose even more hair than I've already lost over the last couple of years. It makes me want to throw things. Because if you let that guy go, if you let your young star GM who won you your first championship ever, who has made some strides in figuring out how to develop some pitchers, it's going to have to, show up at the big league level for me to fully believe it, because that's what it's all about. But it makes me concerned about how much money this team is spending, that they're not going to go out and be able to, down the road, go out and throw money to get into the sweepstakes of a Juan Soto or even an Anthony Santander, or even, one of the 3 to 5 best pitchers in the starting pitching market, or heck, even bringing back Kirby Yates. If this team's not spending really any money, then you're going to have to develop those guys, those cheap guys, internally. That's how the likes of the Rays and the Astros and the Dodgers, that's how they keep staying in it. And if you want to stay in it and, like Chris Young said, make it not be about winning that one championship and everything kind of fluky going exactly perfectly for once in your franchise's history, then it's really important the strides that Rocker has made, the strides that Leiter has made, the strides that this pitching farm and the farm system has done in general, that those are absolutely legitimate. But, I mean, after what I saw from Kumar Rocker last night, it gave me all kinds of hope that this kid is the best pitching prospect I have ever seen for the Texas Rangers. Not a great list, but still, it is by a wide, wide margin. And it made me do something dangerous. And the dangerous thing is having hope about any prospect, but especially a pitching prospect, but super especially a Texas Rangers pitching prospect. But man, if Kumar keeps looking like that, he might make me say there's no such thing as a pitching prospect, except for Kumar Rocker. That's going to do it for this week's shows. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. We'll be back on Monday, hopefully with some nice things to say about Mitch Bratt, maybe even some nice things to say about Winston Santos, and hopefully some at least slightly better games from the big league club against the Twins. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.